This episode of the Bitcoin Group is dedicated to Hangouts Toolbox. Hangouts Toolbox was an incredibly useful piece of software killed by Google for no reason. As you can see in the pictures here, Hangouts Toolbox allows you to have the name on the bottom of your video when you're talking. This is incredibly useful. As you can see on this page, all the Hangouts use Hangouts Toolbox. Everyone wonders why this is happening. Google says they're killing the API on April 25th. It's not April 25th. Why is this happening anyway? Anyway, moving on. The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Blake Anderson, cryptographic economist.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me back on the show. It's been a while.
Gabriel D. Vine from Future Rant.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Hey posterity, hope you enjoy this historical look at the Bitcoin on January 13th, 2017.
Kyle Torpy from Coin Journal.
Hello everyone.
Tone Vase from Liberty Life Trail.
Hi everyone, joining you from the Miami Hackathon. And I got one guest to come join me here for it, so should be fun.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network, still fired up about Hangouts Toolbox. Moving on to Issue 1. Issue 1. It's not a raid. Come on, mouse. Chinese exchanges rocked the Bitcoin price this week with early announcements that they were raided by the government, which turned out to only be a meeting. And now, only a day and a half later, we know the results of that meeting. BTCC, OKCoin, and Hubai have completely halted loan-based or margin trading. The Bitcoin price, which dropped from a recent high of 1130 all the way to 760, has recovered to around 830. Blake Anderson, what does this mean for the future of Bitcoin and China?
Well, it meant that I bought the dip and was very, very happy about that. But what it means for people at large is that, not having a lot of margin trading going absolutely nuts and like 33 to 1, like in 2008, like happened to America, is probably actually not the worst idea. I mean, I'm a pretty libertarian, free market, Austrian kind of a guy, but it seems like the Chinese population or whoever in the government that is trying to make sure that they don't get into a giant, inescapably damaging situation with exchanges not being as by the book as they could be. I think it's good. I think it has the potential to cause lots of turmoil whenever you get anything that gets super leveraged, and then at the end of your money making processes, it creates a lot of instability and a lot of pain for the people that were still in it. So the exchanges are a place where things can happen with Bitcoin that really can't happen other places, in terms of promising you Bitcoin and stuff that's really just a number that's in an account on their website and not necessarily populated coins in a wallet. So kind of cutting back on leveraging on exchanges in China for the Chinese is probably pretty good. I'm not against all kinds of leveraging, but it needs to be done extremely responsibly. And if they don't think that that's what was going on, I can actually kind of appreciate why they thought that that was a good move to make. Other than that, calling it a raid and getting the price to go way, way down, I think that people had seen the recent surge and they wanted to sell and then have an opportunity to rebuy. And so I think that there was maybe a lot of motivation for people to blow that out of proportion, and then a lot of people did do that and then tried to capitalize on what they knew to be true versus what they were saying and signaling to the market. So that's a little bit sleazy, but we've seen China kind of threaten or whatever before, and so if you've seen this story play out before, I think a lot of people were able to make some good money off of those swings.
Anything to make the Chinese exchanges less like gambling casinos with their no fees and now less leverage. Gabriel D. Vine.
Yeah, I agree with Blake on that one. And I also agree with Mad Bitcoins, who sent out a video today with the guy on the catamaran, which really resonated with me. you know, like Blake said, and like you mentioned, it is a lot like gambling. And when you have high leverage situations on these exchanges, sometimes, well, one of the things that really surprised me, I don't have a trading background. I'm a musician, so, as some of you guys know, and I've done some coding over the years, but I don't have a markets trading background. And I was shocked to find out that margin trading on most fiat mainstream exchanges actually will allow you to have a loss on the books. And they'll say, oh, well, your trade didn't, there wasn't any liquidity during this air gap, and you lost your you lost your trade, and you lost on this position, and nobody picked it up until $500 before your ask price, and now you owe us $1,200 because your trade executed at a different place. And so it allows you to have a negative balance, which is really strange. And I think crypto, exchanges don't allow that, which is, I think, really smart. So in other words, if it gets to that point, it'll automatically liquidate all of your money, and it's like, okay, now you have zero, which makes a lot more sense. And I think the Chinese exchanges are maybe operating on something closer. I'm kind of guessing now. I'd love to hear Tone and Blake's opinions about this. And we're operating more on something like traditional markets, where they kind of allow you to float a loss. And that's a really good way to have exchanges go out of business. If tons of people get crushed on margin trades and lose millions, and then that's more than the company has, and then they have to either pull a token scam or go out of business, like Bitfinex. So, in that sense, in the long term, of course, I'm for free markets, totally free markets, total lack of regulation. But of course, there's pain points during that process, and you pay for that, where people take too many risks, and then they eventually learn through collapses that those risks are not tenable over the long term, and then gradually the industries zero in on sustainable practices. And so what happens in the situation of authoritarian governments like we have across the world today, except for in Taiwan, Switzerland, and maybe Singapore, or excuse me, Hong Kong, what we have is where governments attempt to help industries, like the good view would be that governments attempt to help industries leapfrog that difficult phase of collapses and go right into, sustainable business practices. In practice, of course, that hardly ever happens, and they usually just become all rent-seeking bastards. But in this case, I'll have to go with Blake and say, the Chinese approach to this situation is very interesting and seems very unexpectedly and extremely balanced, which I think is absolutely so bullish for Bitcoin. Bitcoin naysayers for years now have, reasonably, in my opinion, been claiming that as soon as governments get wind of how much power crypto and decentralized currencies are going to take out of their bailiwick, they're going to crush it as much as they can and just try to fight it. And I think China has been showing the world for 20 plus years that they know that 20th century authoritarian, 20th century communist type organizations aren't really practical in the digital age, and they need to kind of whip themselves into shape and gradually bring their populace and their government into something that works a little bit better. And I have the sneaking suspicion that China sees Bitcoin as a way to hasten the collapse of Western banking cabals, while also greatly, massively increasing the wealth of their populace, which they maybe want to try to ride the dragon on. They want to try to ride that Chinese dragon and maybe just kind of like, pull off a little bit of that taxation and not really try to run things like a Middle Eastern dictator or a mid-20th century communist tyrant, and instead, just kind of chill a little bit and help things along, which is incredibly optimistic for Bitcoin.
It's a good point, Gabe. The Chinese certainly could have shut down the exchange, and they didn't do that. Kyle Torpy.
Yeah, like Gabe, I'm not a trader, so I'll probably defer to Tone and Blake on this too a little bit. But one thing I have been wondering is whether or not there's any insider trading going on with this, with all these announcements that China seems to make every now and then. I'm not sure how many. I haven't really been paying attention to the announcements this week just because I was working on other things. But I remember back in 2013, it was like basically each announcement was we're banning it, we're not banning it, and then the price would go up and down. So if you're someone who has that information, I don't see. There's definitely an incentive to trade on that information. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying like the PBOC is doing this, but the information's there and the incentive to trade on it is there. So
It's a very perfect storm.
yeah, it definitely makes sense to me. But I mean, I'm not an expert in any of that stuff, so maybe there's a reason where that's a stupid idea. But in terms of PBOC cracking down on the exchanges, one thing I would like to see out of that is more transparent volume numbers, especially with like OKCoin. I know that some of their and I'm not a trader, but I know a lot of the traders are suspicious of their volume numbers. And I know Bobby Lee has even said, I don't think he named names, but he mentioned Chinese exchanges in the past as not having the most transparent systems, and maybe bots are trading or something like that. And I did see Brian Armstrong tweeted out a series of tweets maybe a week or two ago, because people were pointing out that GDAX doesn't have very much volume compared to the Chinese exchanges. And he was pointing out that the way the incentives work, you have free trading with no fees on the Chinese exchanges, and then the withdrawal system have fees in the tiered system. So the more you trade, the lower your fees are. So there's an incentive to keep trading until you get to that next tier where you pay lower fees on your withdrawal. Yeah, and like Gab said, there's definitely a benefit for China, I would think, globally, for weakening maybe the dollar's hold on the world as the world's reserve currency. I remember reading Currency Wars, that Jim Rickard's book a few years back, and there's the opening part is talking about a scheme between China and Russia to destroy the US dollar, the US economy, basically. And the way they do that is by creating a new gold-backed currency. And I always thought that's like one of my favorite theories for where Bitcoin came from, was China and Russia basically doing that and creating Bitcoin, and like that playing out as an attack on the US or the dollar. In terms of what the PBOC thinks, I did see one of the OKCoin executives said that they don't like it, but they don't know how to handle it. So that seems to be like the PBOC's stance at this point.
Kyle, would you agree that things that can be damaged by immutable Austrian policy probably should be damaged? Like if the truth can damage something, then that is probably something that can be damaged. I mean, it would just be kind of an extenuation of those kind of assumptions.
Yeah, I mean, the truth definitely damaged Gain Bitcoin today, I would say, in their scheme. And GBMiners.
If the Chinese government was insider trading, that would be a very capitalist move from a so-called communist government. But
well, that's been a trend recently with them too. With China, they've had a trend of trying to be more and more capitalist to try to fix some of the problems that they've had. So it's interesting to see how they go about that and in what ways they try to regulate or become free market. And they seem like they've been really kind of pointed and going in a direction that makes sense, which doesn't, like, historically with China, you wouldn't think that, because we think of them as, hyper communist and very, very regimented. So that's interesting too.
All right, let's go to Tone Vase.
All right, a lot of things to comment on here from what you guys said. Okay, so let me start with, I don't think China cares enough about Bitcoin. Like, they definitely are not tailoring their economic policy to Bitcoin. I also disagree with Jim Rickards that China is buying up all this gold to launch a gold-backed currency. I don't believe that is going to happen. Onto Blake's point, I think it was Blake, about the traditional exchanges allowing people to take a loss through margin trading because it didn't liquidate in time. That is extremely rare. Extremely rare. That was Gabe? Okay. That's extremely rare. That doesn't normally happen. And it doesn't happen to the tune of like $1,000. If it happens to the tune of millions of dollars. And that's because the trader is a whale with a relationship with the broker. You also see this talked about in the show Billions, which I strongly recommend. If you have not seen the, I think it's Showtime. You know what, let me not say. It's one of the premium channels. If you haven't seen that show, or Netflix, if you haven't seen the show Billions, definitely check that out. And they talk about this specific case. All right, so where do we start with China? Let me, I will make this quick. Let me just share my screen real quick, only because it was interesting. So here's the tweet that Thomas pointed out, and I just saw this tweet for the first time. And this, I can see why BTC China got so pissed, because the tweet said central bank is raiding Bitcoin operations. And then the article title is raiding Bitcoin operations in the title. But when I read this article, literally like a few hours after it came out, the headline of the article is Chinese central bank is inspecting Bitcoin operations. And I'm reading this entire article and I'm like, wow, this is actually more professional than what I usually read from Cointelegraph these days. It's very well written. And then the word raid comes up like right here somewhere at the very end. I don't even know, I can't even find it right now. Here it is. I guess they forgot to edit this word out. And I'm reading this article, I'm like, oh, that's the word that's bothering them. So I had no idea that it was in that headline that prompted all these tweets from BTC China. So that was kind of interesting.
This isn't the first time that Cointelegraph's done that, where they have an incredibly sensational title on Twitter and then they change it in the article. I don't know if they're doing this on purpose, but it does seem to be a pattern.
They would never do that.
No. Okay, so I've actually worked at sort of, I don't want to say work, but I've written for Cointelegraph in the early days. And I have to say that I want to say this is not on purpose. This is more like, it's a very decentralized organization as far as writers go. And they do pay based on, there is a pay component to the article based on clicks and based on views. I don't know if this is still going on, but that's how they used to get paid. So it's to the advantage of the author to create these more sensational articles. And the editing policy there is also very, very loose in the fact that it's very decentralized and people are fact checking from the editors isn't all that great there, or fact checking period. Like it's literally a decentralized blog site. Closer to that.
Additionally, it's not uncommon for editors to add the headline, and the person who writes the article has no control over it. That's a pretty common thing.
No. But in the case of Cointelegraph, it's complete opposite. Like your editor does I had to argue with the editors to actually change shit in my articles because of my bad English. And I'm like, look, if you're proofreading my article and you see bad English, can you please change it? Like their editorial policy was like the opposite. And at other publications, I ran into the other way around, and I'm like, no, I don't want you to change the contents of my sentence. I want you to just edit the grammar and English. I don't want you to remove this because you disagree with my position. So the Cointelegraph, at least, I'm sure it's changed now than when I was there, but the editing at Cointelegraph was very, very minimal. So it's the opposite of what you just said there. Okay, so now I'll keep sharing my screen, it's fine. So now back to what actually happened. So it's interesting. So this was the headline that came out the morning of when the price was crashing. And I pointed this out, that when a PBOC, I don't know if they were actually in their offices or they were just meeting, I'm not even sure, but it doesn't matter, right? Because it's not the reality, it's the perception. And if the perception that is that PBOCs inside their office that can't panic the market, and it did panic the market. And this is the quote that I always struggle with when it comes to Bitcoin. It literally just says, implementation of anti-money laundering system. So I'm like, okay, so how is, like, I'm sorry, I have to be blunt here. Like, this is why I would never run a regulated exchange, because there's a huge conflict. I mean, you can't KYC Bitcoin, really, unless you're Coinbase. So what is going on there? So you have to convince, if the focus of these regulators is to prevent money laundering, I'm not sure how they're, unless they're a Coinbase that KYCs every little thing, how else can you implement that? Now, here's the interesting part. 24 hours before the incident that crashed the price down to 760, this was my quote as given to Coin Idol, where I literally stated that if the Chinese government really wanted to go after Bitcoin, they would literally shut down decentralized exchanges, they would raise electricity, or they would confiscate mining equipment. But if you read the next line, I say, in fact, I wish PBOC would get a little more involved and perhaps regulate some of that unrealistic volume out of the ecosystem. So with today's headline, CoinDesk, I kind of think this is a good thing. Like, this leverage in the Bitcoin space is ridiculous. It's just dumb. And this tells me that a lot of these people don't know all that much about trading in the traditional markets. There is a reason. Wait, let me think here. How do you stop sharing screen? Looking at Thomas right now. Okay, there we go. Okay, good. Nope, now we're looking at Blake.
Google went and removed all the traditional tools on Tone here.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why things like oil, things like gold, indices, the reason why they have such crazy leverage is because these markets are so deep and so liquid. And it was regulation that allowed that keeps an eye on these things. Like, if the market gets even more liquid in gold and oil, they will let you do more leverage. But if these markets aren't that liquid, they will not let you do all this leverage, because it needs to literally be liquid and be in control. Bitcoin doesn't have this. And I remember having these discussions with BitMax and Arthur Hayes when he was launching it initially, and then he's like, no, 20x leverage is insane. We're not going to go to that route. We're going to do like 2, maybe up to 5 times leverage. Like 6 months later, they're doing 50 times leverage, okay? Because they realize that's where the gambling is. But it's not really safe for the Bitcoin network. So I'm kind of happy. I was going to pull up another chart, but I'm already speaking forever. I saw the volume drop on BTC China. I also saw the volume go up on BTC China. But you know what? No, sorry, guys. I will go on for another minute. And where is my story? Here we go. So here is the Brave New Coin Liquid Index. And I helped put this index together. Now look at the volume, right? The volume is like non-existent, and then boom, here's the volume. This is all BTC China doing. So all of a sudden, the volume gets ramped up on BTC China as of October. Now, Bobby Lee has been a big proponent of how everybody else is doing fake volume, but not, well, maybe, I may not quote him like that, but I've heard him be critical of Chinese volumes. And I really thought that he had like some of the more legit volumes out of China, which is why his exchange is in the index. And then look at this volume go through the roof, and then look what happened on that drop day, right? So this is the drop day of 100 points, and look where the volume is. It's right here. Now look at this drop day of only about $20 or $30, not $150, right? Look at the volume. It's like 3 times more volume. So you tell me, how does the price drop 3 times more, yet your volume is 3 times less? So something is definitely going on. Now that I just learned that they took away leverage, that might have a lot to do with it. But I hate the fact that there is zero fee trading, and I hate the fact that there is 20, 30x leverage in a market that is not liquid. That is just stupid. I hope, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and if you compound that with, trading at scale, and then also, robo trading and automatic trading and stuff like that, is definitely not a healthy thing for the Bitcoin environment at scale.
Right. Now here's my view on regulation. Oh, come on, here's my view on regulation, right? Like I used to be anti-regulation across the board, but now after being in the Bitcoin space, I realized that, regulation is really necessary, but we need a full separation between technology and the people. So I want BTC China to be regulated, but I don't want the users to be regulated. Like I want the users to be able to remain anonymous, but I want BTC China to be regulated to make sure they don't pull a Mt. Gox. So I want stricter regulation for consumer protection without compromising the identity of the consumer. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this. And if China is smart enough, they will do it. But like any government, they're against money laundering, which I don't think should be a crime, but they do. So I don't see a good way out of it. It's a chicken and egg problem.
So you want regulation that's aligned with the letter of the law without allowing for a lot of capture? Would that be fair to say? Because capture being the biggest problem with regulation, if we can avoid that, you think it's healthy to have some?
Yeah, because I want to remove the idea of money laundering being a crime. And I know it's difficult because the governments are going in the opposite direction. And I do think China is becoming more capitalistic. I have high hopes, but I don't see it. I mean, we'll need whole other generation that believes in financial privacy. But the way things are headed, even with the election, yeah. And no one wants to hear the truth, right? Look what happened with the DNC email hack. No one cares the truth in those emails. All they hear is like who hacked it and it was Russia's fault. Not the fact that the Democrats were doing something illegal. It's the fact that they were hacked is the problem, right?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to ask that question. I apologize for talking over your time.
Oh, no, it's fine. Sorry, you're telling Thomas.
The Russians hacked both sides and didn't release the RNC emails. But we'll move on to Theo Goodman. It's the end of leverage as we know it in China. Theo, is this a good thing?
Is it a good thing? First of all, I don't know. I don't think it's the end of leverage in China, but it's a nice title. I like it. I also like the Mad Bitcoins. Check it out. Mad Bitcoins, Bitcoin, end of leverage. Just do YouTube search Mad Bitcoins and check out the latest episode. It is a historical document in the history of Bitcoin among the other episodes that will always be with us on the internet. And if you want to go back to other boom bust cycles in Bitcoin, well, just check out the Mad Bitcoins videos and you can see the panic and the euphoria in his videos in a short form. All right, about leverage. All right. I'm vocal fry. Am I vocal fried now? Am I better? Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I had to make it through the snow to come to the Bitcoin group to be on time, and it was really rough. There's a snowstorm coming in. The weather weapon is active. In any case, leverage is not bad. Okay, leverage is a tool. In order to open a bottle of beer, you use leverage. You are able to use, multiply your force. So you could use that for good, or you could use that for bad. I could also use a can opener to rip your face open. That would be bad. But it's just a tool, as is leverage in trading. Now, you're responsible for how you use it. Now, to define what gambling is and what trading is all that, who cares? You can decide that for yourself. There's no one is going to be able to decide that for someone else. That's very subjective. There's all kinds of things that could be going on. There could be hedging. There could be who knows what. All right. So now, first thing, what's good about leverage that not many people are thinking about, and it relates to Bitcoin and the gray area regulated or lack of regulation or self-regulation or whatever you want to call it, is simply this. You don't have to put as much capital at an exchange to trade because you can use leverage. So let's say I have 10 Bitcoins and I'm really worried about the price dumping on me. I could put 1 Bitcoin at an exchange and go 10x short. and then I would have hedged my spot position. That is it. See how I did that? Now, without leverage, it would not be possible. Oh shit, the exchange is hacked. I lost 1 Bitcoin, not 10 Bitcoins. So
you should have put all 10 in there, dude. You got to get some balls out of your purse and go.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. 10x. I mean, shit. You got to go, and 100x, of course. Go over BitMEX, go 100x on 10 Bitcoins, not 10x, not 1 Bitcoin, 10x. But anyway, whatever you want to go, 10x, 100x. Try to do a kind of like, it's not really like options like a straddle exactly, but theoretically you could do it. You go long on one future and short on another future. You go long weekly, short bi-weeklies. You can do all kinds of things like that. So you can play with you can trade volatility and so on. You cannot do that with
the Packers.
too. Yeah, but you can't do any of that without leverage. Okay, so everyone is talking about trading and gamblers and it's awful and in China and all that stuff. So just think about it. I'm a payment processor and I have to hold, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5 Bitcoins overnight. And the price dumps 20%. That was pretty dumb, right? But if I would be able to use some kind of tool, at the moment, all we've got is, leverage trading in the form of futures or swaps, or they're called swaps. I don't want to get into all we've got what we've got. We don't really have traditional options to do that. So one way would be to, have some kind of leverage in order to protect yourself from that. It's very sensitive. Okay, now that I'm going into my own podcast here, just one last thing to wrap it all together. Why does all this matter as well, as far as the so-called wash trading, so-called fake volume, and the infamous, which might be the end of the infamous China volumizer, which was the Loch Ness monster of the Bitcoin market on the charts, if you could spot the volumizer. The first thing I want to get it back to before someone distracts me in the chat again is that if you want to have people use Bitcoin to buy stuff, if you want to have people to use Bitcoin to do micropayments to pay people on YouTube, if you want to have Bitcoin to be able to do stuff like on sports betting, if you want to have people to use Bitcoin for anything, it's gonna have to go to an exchange at some point. If that exchange has very little trading going on and is basically illiquid and has a lot of slippage, that's going to make that whole situation difficult. Whereas if there's an exchange with a lot of trading going back and forth, it has some volume. Where the volume comes from in that situation, I just need to get my thing going and I don't need to have a lot of slippage, right? So it comes into use. Then it's very useful to have an exchange with something with some action there, not with a huge spread. Okay, you got a payment processor, now they got to think, oh shit, I got to go to the exchange. No one trades there anymore. It's a ghost town. The spread is enormous. Now I'm going to have to, calculate that in. So all this stuff that you like about Bitcoin, if there was not a lot of trading on the so-called evil China exchange is bad and they have automated trading and leverage and it's so evil, then you don't get all the good stuff too. So you have to think about the good and the bad. And guess what? Do you really think that the Bitcoin price would have hit 1,000 again without all this? Do you really think the Bitcoin price could go up without the volumizer, hype, and leverage? I really doubt it. So think about that. This is how it is. This is the reality. Bitcoin up,
so you're saying that
China good.
So you're saying
China,
that leverage
Bitcoin down, China bad.
You're saying that leverage is the son of Willybot?
No, I'm saying that not exactly. No, I mean I think that wash trading could be a distant cousin of him, but that does not. It's not exactly. It's not exactly the same as. We need to take every Willybot comparison as into an individual comparison and not make blanket statements about Willybot here in order to facilitate fake news about Bitcoin. In any case, I would really go away from saying leverage is bad. We need to, everyone that says leverage is bad, learn about leverage. What is it? Could it be used in a bad way? Could you get wrecked? Yeah, sure, you could. But there's a lot of good stuff that comes with leverage too. It's just a matter of how you use it. And don't forget, unfortunately, there's no Pepe Cash leverage trading just yet, but never know. That's going to come soon.
And remember,
let me just jump in here.
Willybot had the unique position of owning the exchange, so he had a little more insider data. But go ahead, Tony. We are trying to move on to the next issue soon.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna comment on a couple of things that Theo said. So look, I'm a leverage trader in the traditional finance space. I trade futures. I'm taking a little break from that. I still trade options. I always trade options. There are no options in Bitcoin because options are a very tricky leverage instrument. Now, I don't have a problem with leverage, but what happens in the Bitcoin space, there's several problems. One, in the traditional space, there's like one exchange. There's one exchange for, I said, oil futures. Well, there's a couple, but there's just a few. And all you have are brokers, so there's a lot of liquidity there, right? But there's science that has gone on to determine a proper amount of leverage that's not going to blow up the system, and it's also high enough. Like there is some science that's going on in order to figure out a good amount of leverage. It happens in the option space as well. There's a reason why option strikes are like $5 a part for stocks under $75. Once stocks are over $100, these strikes are $10 a part. And for a stock like Twitter and Yelp, which I'm actually like, those options are $1 a part. So to give people more choices, and I'm actually not a big fan of that personally, but there is science is going on and there is testing going on. Will this give you more liquidity, right? None of this is happening right now in the Bitcoin space. These exchanges are throwing out these numbers just for people to do it. Now, I understand, I have the same argument that you have, Theo, that you're able to put less of your capital at risk of an exchange being hacked. And I agree with that. But at the same time, I don't agree with giving people 100x leverage. I think it's ridiculous. This market isn't liquid enough for that. You shouldn't be able to take both sides of a futures contract. That's not supposed to be profitable, but it is in the Bitcoin space. And you can like alter the market with it. By being able to go 100x on both sides, whale can have the capacity of moving the underlying and profiting from the socialization of a stupid contract on one end. And this kind of manipulation is common in the Bitcoin space. And also the comment from earlier about insider trading, there are no insider trading laws in the Bitcoin world, so you can really do whatever you want. There's actually no insider laws for currency trading or futures trading. They don't exist. You cannot insider trade those. No matter what you do, no one is going to yell at you for insider trading. It's only on like stocks. So in the Bitcoin space, those laws don't exist, so of course you do it. My speculation on day one of the Monero was that it was insider traded and by the darknet markets before they added it, which is how they made their money. They bought a bunch of Monero pre-announcement. You can go back to whatever episode we did on that day, and that's what I said before any evidence of that came out, and evidence of that came out. I mean, that's what you use Bitcoin for.
And if you can't trust the darknet markets, who can you trust? Moving on to issue 2. Issue 2, Bitcoin Ponzi. India-based Bitcoin mining pool GBMiners, who made headlines recently for supporting Bitcoin Unlimited with their 3% hash rate, has been accused of being a Ponzi scheme. The pool seemed interlinked with Gain Bitcoin, a site that promises 10% monthly returns, no matter what. Add up. The story was broken by Kyle Torpy from CoinJournal, who joins us on today's program. Mr. Torpy, what does this mean for the future of cloud mining? Can it be trusted? What's really going on?
Yeah, so I remember a few years ago, Gavin Andreessen actually said most of the cloud mining schemes will turn out to be Ponzi's, and it seems that he's been correct on that. I'm not aware of too many legitimate cloud mining companies. Maybe someone else could on the panel could share, but I know there's Genesis Mining that's been around for a long time, and someone told me there's one connected to Bitmain in China that appears to be legitimate. But outside of, you know, a handful at the most, all of them seem to be running some kind of scam. So GBMiners contacted me a few months ago because they were launching their pool and they were trying to do PR and marketing, which is fine. So they reached out to me and wanted me to cover their pool and everything, and they had 3% hash rate. So I was like, okay, they actually have some hash rate. They can't fake that, really. And they would say things to me that were just blatantly not true. And I guess I don't know if they were. I don't know if they just assumed that I wouldn't look into it or something. But they were just things that I knew just because all I cover is Bitcoin, so I knew what they were telling me wasn't true. They were saying things like they're the biggest mining pool outside of China, which obviously Bitfury is. I don't remember what the other ones were off the top of that, but there was just like little things. I was like, all right, well, they're still doing marketing, I guess, and they're probably just fudging the facts a little bit. And then someone gave me a tip about a thread on the Bitcoin Talk forums where the founder of GBMiners was being connected to Gain Bitcoin, which is a cloud mining scheme. GBMiners is the mining pool. So I looked into that, and I didn't really see anything at first. And then I saw that they're guaranteeing 10% returns per month. So I was like, oh, this is a Ponzi scheme, obviously. And the returns are actually even greater than that compounded, because they pay out twice a month, and it's 5% on each payout. So I calculated the annual compounded return, and it's something like 200% or over 200% that they're saying that you can get out of it. So in terms of why it's a Ponzi scheme, obviously the 10% thing is a dead giveaway, but there's also other stuff like they have their own Bitcoin mining calculator on their website, and it says if you have 1 Bitcoin worth of mining power purchased through them, which is 1.5 terahash, it should give you 0.1 Bitcoin per month in earnings, which is not true at all. If you go to any other calculator, it's something like 0.04 per month, and that's ignoring like all the costs that go into mining, electricity and everything. And the way Gain Bitcoin works, it's a multi-level marketing system, so they have all these referral payouts that they have to do on top of that. So there's no way they could be making any of those payments at all. But another thing is they sell hash power for 4 times the amount of Genesis mining. They do a thing that another cloud mining scheme did back in 2015 that I covered for Bitcoin Magazine, where they're offering a discount on they offer a discount on like this contract that's 100 Bitcoin, and they're offering it for 86 Bitcoin. So there's the prices that they offer just don't have no direct connection to what if they're mining at all in the background. And they kept they denominated their contracts in Bitcoin. They didn't change the prices at all for the halving. After that happened, they didn't change the price at all for the entire year, even though the price doubled. And I asked the guy who runs GBMiners and is connected to Gain Bitcoin about that, and he basically said that Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin doesn't affect his business, which is an absurd claim, because like if the price went to 0, then you wouldn't have a business at all.
Yeah, that's a really dangerous statement to make unless they can qualify it by saying we have X source of funds which allow our horizons to be almost infinite. So yeah, I agree with you that that's really sketchy.
Well, I didn't put this in an article, but someone, this is just a random person, so I don't know if it's true at all, did say at a meetup somewhere, Amit Bardwaj said that he has, the way they're making the payments is that he has a stack of Bitcoin that will keep the system running for 25 years or something like that, which is obviously another absurd claim. So it's just absurd claims.
Of course, if you had a stack of Bitcoin like that, why would you even bother running an exchange?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different flaws that you can poke at in this. Yeah, they were also going to be, they were about to launch, or I don't know if they even already launched, Satoshi Studios, which was going to be an incubator in Southeast Asia for blockchain startups and stuff. Amit was an investor in that, and Roger Ver was about to be an investor in it. And I talked to him about it, and he seemed to think everything was on the up and up with Satoshi Studios. I haven't talked to him since I published the piece, so I don't know what he's thinking of doing now, but maybe I'll talk to him later and add it to a follow-up piece or something.
The good name of Satoshi dragged through the mud again. Tone Bays, what do you think of this Ponzi scheme, alleged?
Oh man, it's bad. Look, there's just more scams and Ponzi's in the Bitcoin space, like per capita, than probably anything in the world. It's really rough. I also don't believe in cloud mining.
We lead the world in Ponzi's. We're number one.
Yeah, no, I don't believe in cloud mining. I know Marco from Genesis, and I know what's his name, Joby Weeks from BitClub. They're nice guys. I don't believe they're scamming people. I think they're trying to run legitimate companies, but I believe their business models are just unsustainable. And sooner or later, they're going to run into a problem. And when they run into a problem immediately, it'll be like a 1% problem. I mean, if they're really doing it right, then like Genesis mining, like people's payouts would just get smaller and smaller and smaller, right? If they're doing it honestly. But if there is a minor screw up, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to realize you are 1% short. At this point, you are 1% short. And at this point, as a company, you have to start making decisions. Now, the best decision you can make at that point is to come out publicly, admit that you've come up 1% short, and you give everybody 99% of their money back. But nobody does this, right? They don't want to admit, like no one's going to sue them for that extra 1%. I mean, people will be happy they got 99% of their money back. What happens most of the time is they try to come up with other incentives to double down and make up the 1%. And now they're down 2%. And then they have to make a decision. Do we keep going for a full-blown Ponzi, or do we take the money and run? Some take the money and run. Some end up, losing 50%, and then the whole thing blows up, and then they have no money, and then they go to jail, right? Kind of like, or Garza, but Garza is not in jail. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't believe that these cloud mining schemes are going to work. This one is very clearly a Ponzi. It's frustrating that like you have to even like convince people about it. We're gonna have to go through it. And now here's the thing that I learned. I didn't learn, but I read a great article, by the way, Kyle. Great job. Really, really top-notch work. Here's the thing: like you read these things, and like these schemes are getting more and more convoluted. They're getting more and more complicated, and that tells you that the level of the scammers coming into the Bitcoin space are smarter, and they're more they're making the scams more and more difficult. And then when you try to expose them, they put up this fight. Dan Larimer is probably the expert at this, right? Like they're making Steemit so freaking complicated and convoluted with their economics. So it's the same thing. It's like obscurity and complexity is not a feature. Also doing the same thing, right? So it's like all of this complexity is adding to it, which also means that the level of the scammers is kind of high. So we have to deal with it as a community.
If only they'd been cloud mining Paycoin or OneCoin, this never would have happened. Blake Anderson.
Yeah, I think Tone has a really, really good point. I mean, the people that are coming into Bitcoin to try to scam the people that are smart enough to know about Bitcoin and why it has a value proposition, they're going to be a lot more able to fool people than like, I'm a Nigerian prince and I need your social security number so I can get money out of the country. Most people know about that, or most people know if the IRS contacts you and they're like, hey, we need some money from you. Can you get your friends to loan you the money that you need from us? People know that the IRS takes tax. They don't have to go around collecting it. They'll, basically garnish your accounts and stuff. But the Bitcoin schemes with the crowdfunding and all that kind of stuff, the people that well, basically, it's an emperor is wearing clothes strategy. Like, look at the emperor's amazing robes. They're so great. They're so elegant. They're so ornately decorated. And then if you say, I don't see the clothes, or I don't see the value proposition in this extremely complex, self-reinforcing rationalization happy plan, people are like, oh, well, you don't understand it. What are you, dumb? And then, believe it or not, people don't want to admit that they don't understand it and they don't see it, and they invest in something that they figure is a really good investment because somebody that they saw as smart said it was a good idea. So I would say that, I guess the lesson to come from this is, if you don't personally yourself understand the value proposition of an investment, absolutely, if you don't have an absolute grasp of it, for the love of God, do not put any money into it that you can't lose. I guess if you think it has an infinite upside and that you don't need to understand it because you're extremely lucky, I guess that's up to you. But really, know thyself, be skeptical, and don't try to say that the emperor's clothes are beautiful when you can't see them.
Excellent.
That's a great point, Blake. Great point.
And I would agree with what Tone said as well, that so many of these scams are so well designed that as an average normal person, you have no way of seeing through it. Sometimes it might not even be possible. So you don't even have the inkling that you're doing something shady. You don't even have that.
Yeah.
I could add something on that.
No.
I think this article probably won't even do much good because, like Tone said, to everyone in the Bitcoin community, it's obvious that this is a Ponzi scheme. But they're not targeting the Bitcoin community. They're targeting the normal, everyday guy in India who doesn't know any better. And Bitcoin's a very, very complex topic and very hard to understand. So, I hope that it does some good, but I know that some Indian news organization is supposedly also working on something. So we'll see if that comes out as well.
Well, hopefully people in India are watching this. I don't think that's, if you build it, they will come. And if you put the information out there, I think it'll do more than zero good. I really do.
That's a good point, though, Kyle, that they are targeting non-Bitcoin people. Things like OneCoin has had so many seminars and meetings, and I don't even hear anything about it because I'm just not in that circle. But the people who are in those circles are in danger because they just don't have the knowledge of cryptocurrency to know if they're making a good decision.
Right. No. One quick point on that, Kyle. No, and you're right. They are. So this is why we really hope to get help from those Indian exchanges like UnoCoin that can kind of speak out against a lot of the stuff and help the people in their local community that these things are scams because they're focusing on non-Bitcoin people, just like OneCoin. The reason why I picked a fight with something like Steemit, and I've ignored OneCoin. You never really hear me talk about OneCoin because my target audience is Bitcoiners, and it's obvious for them. Like if you go to like the Steemit website, they all talk about how obvious it was for them within a minute to figure out that OneCoin is a scam. Steemit, which is why I picked a fight with the Steemit community, because I'm like, but it's the same thing as OneCoin. How come you can recognize that OneCoin is a scam within 60 seconds, but you can't recognize that Steemit is a scam after 3 months of writing on Steemit? So we have our own problems within the Bitcoin space. They are the same. It's just the target audience is different, and those scams are way more complicated and way more convoluted. But now the scams for the non-Bitcoiners are getting complicated and convoluted to the point that Bitcoiners are struggling to identify the scam, and we're saying, well, it's obvious to us. It's obvious. Just look at it. It's obvious. We're screaming at these people, and they're like, well, how is it obvious? And we're like, crap. This guy has convoluted this to a point to non-Bitcoiners that Bitcoiners are having a problem. Scam, even though we know it's a scam.
At least we're leading the world in something.
On the point with the exchanges, ZebPay did put out they did like a live chat on Facebook or something, and they did, like the first thing they did was say this warning about, they didn't name Gain Bitcoin specifically, but they said they were aware of these cloud mining Ponzi schemes, and they're very clear that they're scams and the profits they offer are not possible. But another thing with more people talking about this is it's kind of an issue because of the level of corruption in India. A lot of the people some of the people that I talked to didn't want to go on the record or anything because they were scared of some type of retribution. I don't know if that's maybe why the exchanges don't talk about it directly and like specifically point them out. But yeah.
It's also got to be hard from their perspective. They're just running a business. They don't necessarily want to call out other businesses. That's not good for business. But yeah, if you're giving away 10% returns and saying it never goes down, the price doesn't affect you, it's pretty bad. Theo Goodman, your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I have a message to all cloud mining operators. and all that kind of stuff. Guys, just call yourself a Ponzi. It would be better. You don't have to, like, okay, let's think about it. Last year we had MMM, right? It was a huge success. A lot of people made money. No, but they said, we're a Ponzi. Now, I'm totally okay with that. You see what I mean? They're just upfront. They're like, hey, this is a Ponzi. You know, this is how it works. We've got like this mega payout MLM thing going on. And, you know, it's a kind of pyramid scheme form or whatever you want to call it. You know, we've got it hooked up to social media and we're going to do this thing, and Bitcoin makes it all possible because, you know, we don't have to use banks basically. So that's what fuels it. And if they would just come out like that, look at the success MMM had success as far as a Ponzi. It was probably the biggest Bitcoin Ponzi success that I know of. So, you know, at least just come out with it and say, hey, we're, you know, cloud Ponzi, or I don't know whatever you want to call it, rebrand yourself, whatever, you know, just be like, hey, look, Bitcoin mining, it's just not working. It's not really profitable. For everyone, there are no lifetime contracts. That's my favorite one. All these places, they say, lifetime contract. It's so great. Yeah, lifetime contract. Yeah, lifetime. Yeah, you gave me your Bitcoin. I hold it for a lifetime, more like it. It's really just, you know, I think that's probably one of the best sales lines, marketing lines to have. Lifetime contract. Earn wealth for a lifetime. You know, your mining contract never expires. Asterisk. As soon as it doesn't pay the TX fee, then you don't get anything, which doesn't take long depending on how the difficulty is and everything adjusts. So it's pretty simple. I think these things, and if you're interested in cloud mining schemes, which I would just openly call them as that, fine. It's kind of like a form of gambling or something. I mean, you know, maybe it's possible to make money if you have, well, actually the way you make money on it is affiliate earnings. That's the only way to really make money on it. But, you know, just look at it. If you were to market it as betting on these cloud mining ones, how long it's going to last, then I think that's an okay way to do it. Just come up and be like, hey, we're betting on these scams. Which one's going to last the longest? That's a good way to do it. So I think that's the best way to approach it. And that's what the people promoting them, the affiliates of these, stop trying to be all serious. Look at me, oh wait, here we go. I got my big mining gear here. We're mining Bitcoin. Check it out, cloud mining. Yeah, hey, click my link below. We got this thing go. Yeah, check it out. Just say, look, it's not even hooked to anything. See, anyone can get one of these. They don't cost anything.
That's a secure cloud miner. That's secure.
I could put, you know, like 5 of these behind me. It probably costs, I don't know, $100 or something to get, you know, 5 S1s. It looks really cool. I got a nice picture. If I'm really clever with if I'm really clever with Photoshop, maybe I can just take Jeff Garzik and zap him out of the picture and put myself in front of a wall of miners, you know, and look all serious. Just quit. All you people, everyone promoting cloud mining, stop being serious like you're really promoting mining. Just say, look, this is a cloud mining scheme. Get in while you can, and maybe you'll make money. And that's how you should promote it. Just be honest. That's the only honest way to promote these things.
Just be honest and do what the Russians used to do. You just put mirrors around the missile, and suddenly now you have more missiles. Gabriel D. Vine.
Yeah, I like that. This is definitely like a hall of mirrors that we go down when we discuss all the scams in the crypto space. And, you know, this whole thing that I got to say, you know, Kyle, it does do good. The awareness that you bring, at least it spreads to the crypto and the Bitcoin community, and it spreads a little bit outside that into the tech community, and, you know, gradually increases awareness. And in this case, the connection to Bitcoin Unlimited specifically is totally fascinating to me. It's so ridiculous and over the top to have this new mining pool running Bitcoin Unlimited, and then to have the CEO just so transparently involved in a scam is so over the top that it just makes me think it might almost be an intentional project buy some Bitcoin whales. They're like, hey, how much is it going to cost us to, do this scheme and make Bitcoin Unlimited look really bad? Oh yeah, I think we only need like $3-4 grand. All right, I got 700,000 Bitcoin laying around. So from 2009. So here's 6. Go out there and make a mining company. Don't even buy any actual hashing power. Just rent some for a minute and from my friends, and then make Bitcoin Unlimited look really bad because we want Bitcoin to live a long time, and these unlimited guys are making too much noise. I mean, it's just totally ridiculous. I would think that the Bitcoin Unlimited is way less of a scam than a straight up Ponzi scheme. So I'm assuming that Bitcoin Unlimited fans have got to be anguished about being associated now with this straight up pyramid scheme Ponzi. They must be really upset about this, and I think it's hilarious. And basically, what I think really happened, I don't think this whole thing is a scam to undermine Bitcoin Unlimited. I think really what happened is the GBMiners scammer CEO guy saw that the Bitcoin Unlimited fanboys are the more what's the word I'm looking for? Credulous sector in the space, and therefore decided to focus on marketing to them to get the stupidest of the stupid to actually throw down some of their hard-earned or hard-won, crypto sound assets, Bitcoin, into their extreme scams so that they can pull an exit and just rip everybody off. So that's what I think is kind of going on the larger scale with this project. And on an even larger scale, unlike Tone, unlike some of the thoughts and opinions that I'm hearing today, I think this is wonderful. I think the more scams, the better. Bitcoin is anti-fragile. So scams like this are just nothing. It's like a fly on the horse's back. So the tale of of crypto hard assets, the tale of intelligent investors and intelligent people in the space will easily whip scams like this off the back of the ecosystem. And what it is like this tiny viral infection. Right? You've got this tiny slice of the pie of crypto aware people who are taken in by Ponzi schemes, OneCoin. People get brought into the ecosystem for that type of stuff, or they're already existing there. People like a friend of mine who got taken in by BitClub might not be a Ponzi. I don't know. Maybe they can keep up their 30% returns or whatever they've got right now. It's not 200%, but it doesn't seem like it's very, very high risk, and I advised him against it. But they're going to take in these people. The people will get fleeced. They'll lose all their money and power in the ecosystem. And the intelligent people will go on to make another scam, just like Ned did with going from Paycoin to Steemit. And the successful scammers will get more sophisticated, but at a certain point, the people are just everybody in the space gets really jaded and does a lot of diligence, and then what happens is the people that are
everybody turns tone cold.
Right, exactly. And not only do they turn Tone cold, they also look to Tone and Kyle, other thinkers in the space, Andreas Antonopoulos, Peter Todd, Blockstream guys. People ask those type of people their opinion about things, and if they have time to look into it, they give their honest opinion. And the more they're correct in their judgment about these scams, the more clout they gain. And then it's like, hey, I've never been wrong about a scam before, and I've exposed these 16 scams that have all collapsed since because they were scams the whole time, and you were too blinded by your greed to see it. For the 17th one, maybe you should just not give them your hard-earned sound crypto.
It's a good point. And just remember how early we are on this. This is new money. You can use it to buy drugs, prostitution, or the dreams of getting rich. And people never get tired of buying the dreams of getting rich. This is a great product to sell.
I thought you were going to say
Yeah,
drugs
just
and prostitutes.
Let me just comment something real quick. So I haven't been happy with Andreas Antonopoulos lately in the space, and by lately I mean over a year. He was looking at Ripple way too positively. He was looking at Ethereum way too positively. He was looking at the more as a thought leader and be way more critical of some of these projects. And I like Andreas. I just think that he's way optimistic and he's not questioning some of these projects like I believe that he should. Also, Gabe, I think you meant Dan Larimer going from BitShares to Steemit. Just to correct that. One last point on these Ponzi's, right? And I realized this during the 2008 crisis because of Bernie Madoff. We have to be really careful. And I kind of wanted Kyle to talk more about the DDoS attack that happened after he published the article. Maybe he can do a very quick comment. I know we're dragging on this topic for a while, but there is danger. There is an element of danger. And this is where I disagree with Gabe that, oh, let these Ponzi's go and stuff. No. They need to be squashed because here's the problem. As this Ponzi becomes powerful, the people behind the Ponzi get incredibly rich. As they get rich, they become powerful. One statement, like as I go against things like Steemit, like Ethereum, like in the back of my mind, I do worry a little bit. And the reason why I worry is because after Bernie Madoff went to prison, there were interviews with one of the guys that was trying to expose Bernie Madoff for like 5 years before the 2008 crisis. He was keeping track of everything Bernie was doing. He was like following Bernie's funds. He was trying to report it to the SEC, and he was doing all of it anonymously because he didn't know if Bernie Madoff had people at the SEC. So the SEC wasn't taking him seriously. But then there were interviews with him after Bernie had gone to jail, and he said, I had to do it anonymously because Bernie had so much money, I was not going to put myself or my family in danger trying to expose Bernie Madoff as a Ponzi schemer. And this is what I worry about for us and for people like Kyle, because if this Ponzi gets to the point where the owners of this Ponzi are so powerful and they know Bitcoin, it is possible for them to do something malicious to you and your family because they have the money and the means, because they're a scammer and they're illegal, to do something very bad, and you can let your imagination run wild. So you do have to be careful, and saying that these Ponzi's, let them go and they'll eventually collapse, is very difficult on guys like us that are putting our faces out there, trying to expose them as they get more and more money. I think everyone gets the drift.
Well, I think you a little bit misunderstood, and thank you for correcting me. Yes, Dan Larimer is exactly who I meant. I think you a little bit misunderstood what I was indicating there. I'm definitely not saying that we shouldn't fight with everything we've got, all these scams. They're absolutely terrible. They need to be fought for sure. My point was simply that we will fight them. We will win. The immune system of the Bitcoin ecosystem will become therefore stronger, and it's nothing to worry about. It is something to spend time on, to warn people about, to actively fight. That's kind of more what I meant. And I also appreciate what you said about Andreas, who I called out as my Bitcoiner of the year because of his incredibly great analogies about Bitcoin and things like that. But I completely agree with you 100% that he isn't skeptical enough on some new projects, for sure. I agree with that.
Just to comment on some of the things Tone was saying, those kind of thoughts did go through my head before I published this. I even thought about publishing it anonymously. And like I said, a lot of the people I talked to didn't want to go on the record at all, just because they were worried about that type of thing. In terms of the DOS attack, I'm not too sure on the details of that. The guy who runs CoinJournal did say there was some kind of attack going on this morning, but when we were talking last night, he said that he was going to I don't know how Cloudflare works, but he upped whatever he like made Cloudflare work better, paid more. I don't know. He prepared.
Well, exactly. These DOS attacks can be very costly to journalists. It's enough to try to keep a website online, but if you have thousands of people trying to attack it to bring you down, you have to pay more. You don't necessarily make more money for that article if people can't read it. It is a major issue.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem. There's very little money in journalism and keeping that alive. And if these scams are making money, they have the capital to like ruin your company for one article.
Theo, do you want to add something?
Oh, I just wanted to say that this is a very regular occurrence for all crypto rags, all Bitcoin news sites or whatever you want to call them. Any of them that have any kind of traffic get DDoS on a regular basis, small or middle or big or whatever. It's a constant thing. Now, I don't know if it has to do with, it could be related to articles. It could just be related to maybe even who knows what, but it's a pretty regular occurrence. But guys, it's not going to do anything. So just give it up. Doesn't do any good.
I believe that the attacks come from people that are running botnets. We have a lot of computer scientists and computer nerds in here. If you have a botnet and you want to use it for something and you can't think of anything, and then you think maybe you can affect the price by trading in a certain way and then preventing an article from coming out before you can make your trades, I think that that's where a majority of this stuff comes from, is people wanting to use a botnet for something that they've either script kiddied together or put together themselves.
Hey guys, I was just fact checked. Let me just correct myself. So people in the chat are saying they don't recall Andreas ever speaking positively about Ripple. I could be wrong on that. I just heard other people be critical of Andreas speaking positively about Ripple. So if he never did, that is misinformation on my part. I do apologize to Andreas in case he hears this, but I'm not going to go back and look for what Andreas said about Ripple 3 years ago. I just don't have that kind of time, nor is it important to me. But I heard other people be critical of Andreas about Ripple in the past, that he wasn't critical of Ripple. So that's where I'm getting my information from. So if he wasn't, then sorry, Andreas.
I think that Blake brings up a good point with the crypto locker and with the information about that, because basically it's all the old tricks. It's having a botnet, it's encrypting your hard drive, but now you can combine it with Bitcoin. We can have a botnet, maybe we can affect the Bitcoin price. We have take over your hard drive, maybe you can send us some Bitcoin. So we're seeing advanced modifications of that. Go ahead, Kyle.
It's too late now.
Go ahead, Theo.
It's too late now. It's going to be on the next news site right now, Tone. It's too late. Tone Vase tells the world that Andreas Antonopoulos is positive on Ripple. It's going to be on CoinDesk and Bitcoin Magazine and Bitcoinist and Bitcoin Newsist and everything else tomorrow. So just be aware, get ready for that. And DDoS is incoming.
Kyle's already typing away. Anything else on this issue, Kyle, before we move on to the next issue? Just give you the last word.
Oh yeah, Gabe was talking about this support from Bitcoin, or support for Bitcoin Unlimited from GBMiners. And I did notice, I've been trying to use Reddit a lot less lately, but I did see the thread on RBTC about the Gain Bitcoin based on my article, and they didn't seem that convinced it was a Ponzi scheme. They kind of viewed it as an attack on GBMiners because they ran Bitcoin Unlimited. But I also talked to Amit about why he was supporting Bitcoin Unlimited, and that was part of the reason that I became more convinced it was Ponzi. Well, I always knew it was a Ponzi scheme. The thing I was trying to figure out is the connection between Gain Bitcoin and Amit. But yeah, a lot of his answers on that interview seemed, I mean, he said that he'd be all right with a hard fork with only 60% of the miners supporting it, which is something that even I don't think many Bitcoin Unlimited people would even say.
You can always make money during chaotic periods. So, but let's move on to issue 3. Issue 3. Bitcoin prices down, except in India. Economic conditions and the war on cash, combined with a robust Bitcoin infrastructure, have led to a current market price of around $972 on the Indian exchanges, a full 17% higher than average. The circulation of national currency in India has been cut by 50%. Is this the perfect storm? Is Bitcoin going viral in India? Tone Vase.
Oh, didn't realize I was going to be first for the story. Um, yes and no. I mean, Bitcoin may be going viral in India only because they have like a giant population, but because the average person in that population is very, very poor, then I don't think it has all that much of an effect, right? Like just because like Bitcoin is over $1,000 in India, I don't think it registers across the world, because the amount of buying that takes place in Europe and China and the US like dwarfs the amount of buying that takes place in India. Also, it's a supply and demand. I mean, if you have a lot of demand and not a lot of supply, prices will go up. It will eventually normalize. A Bitcoin is starting to go up again. It will probably be $1,000 pretty much everywhere. And most likely the appreciate, like it's not going to go like infinitely higher, right? Like right now, if India is over $1,000, and if we go back to $1,000, India will just stay where it is, or it will go up at a much slower percentage rate than the price of Bitcoin everywhere else until they eventually normalize. And again, opportunistic people will take advantage of the situation. Like if I was in India, why on earth would I sell Bitcoin at price, at market cost, especially when it was over $1,000 like earlier? And those that follow me on Twitter, you know that every month I publish the Bitcoin Maximalist Bitcoin month-end price, where I take the global market cap of all cryptos and I divide it by a number of Bitcoins outstanding. And if someone comes to me wanting to buy Bitcoin, that is the price I'm quoting them, right? The premium on the Bitcoin that I sell to people that want to buy it from me is that, and almost nobody buys it because that's always like a 15 to 20% premium. But I tell them exactly how I get this number. There you go. That's the number for my Bitcoins. And so I'm not surprised by this. Like I said before, I don't believe India is going to lead the wave of adoption. I think what's happening in India is the headlines, right? It's the headlines that reach out nationally. That is what is helping to drive the Bitcoin price. So not necessarily what is happening in India, but the idea that this could be happening anywhere else is what might actually be helping to drive that the price in India. As far as Bitcoin's technological ability to go to this digital world of crypto, I actually had a nice picture that I pulled out from a Harvard study. Let me look for it. I'll let other people talk and then maybe get back to me at the end. But that's basically my views on India, and we've talked about India many times in prior episodes, so listeners should definitely go back to those.
It's a good thing that Tone's not running the exchange. I think we get a better price from that bear. Blake Anderson.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, definitely, I think that in India, there's very, very many reasons to like and to use Bitcoin. Some people in America and stuff are like, well, the dollar works fine. I mean, it might be inflationary over a long enough period, but there's not a whole bunch of really, visceral reasons to use it right away. That's not really the case in India. India's got a lot of turmoil in terms of economics and their power grid and all kinds of different stuff. They have lots of people hungry and starving and living in poverty, and they build gigantic, just completely disgustingly huge airports and stuff like that. So in terms of what their country is using their money for and stuff like that, I think that sends a large signal to all the people to look at, how and where their money is coming from, where it's being spent, and they're like, I want to go ahead and want to withdraw my consent from those operations a lot more than maybe somebody in the United States would be motivated to do. So is Bitcoin going viral in India? I don't know if it's like a viral trend that'll continue to increase in, like, the permanent viralness, but I think that there's definitely very, very strong reasons why Bitcoin would do well in some places, even more so than others. China and India obviously being two of those. But I think that China is kind of moving away from being similar to India and kind of moving towards more free markets. I don't know quite yet that India is doing things to really do anything to prevent their continual overheating cycles, and maybe not spending money as well as they could in regards to how they treat their populace and stuff like that. Not that I'm a huge fan of government programs, etc., but I mean, there's limits to everything.
Theo Goodman.
The question is Bitcoin going viral in India, and what's up with the premium? Why is it so much higher?
You are correct, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, host. Well, I don't know if it's going viral or not. It could totally dump. The premium could go away tomorrow. Maybe somebody realizes there's a premium, figures out an efficient way to arbitrage that, and it dumps, and then we don't have an India premium anymore. I think part of the reason the premium is there is it's not quite as easy to move funds in and out of the exchanges as it is some of the other exchanges that are in the West. It's not that easy to do as it would be, and that is one factor in the premium, I think. I don't know. I'm not in India, so I can't say if it's going viral there or not. I definitely agree that it looks pretty good, the future, if the government keeps on clamping down on, gold, silver, and things like that are very traditionally, used as a store of value in India. Then, of course, Bitcoin does make some logic there as an alternative, especially for moving it, overseas. Of course, that's a logical choice there. And it seems like the regulations on banks, on people moving stuff around, is just increasing. So it has the potential to go viral, but I wouldn't say it's going viral just yet. Just because us Bitcoiners see that there's a few exchanges out there and it's over 1,000 and we think it's going viral. I don't think it's just yet. It's just probably, but maybe on the good side, it's probably just started. It's probably just now getting started. And yeah, let's see where this goes.
Hold on to your horses, India. It's not Pepe Cash yet. Gabriel D. Vaughn.
Yeah, I am of the opinion that 2017 is going to be the year that Bitcoin begins to be utilized as a money and as a store of value by some larger populations in the world, almost certainly all of which are outside what we call the West. And so, but not including South America in that. So I'm thinking South America, I'm thinking Asia, and I'm thinking Africa, primarily for the start of mass adoption. I made that prediction back in 2013. And from everything I can see, we are now setting up for it. And I have a feeling that Lightning and other payment channel tech will come just barely in time to handle some of the transaction volume demand coming down the pike. And I want to point out, in regards to viral uptake, viral infections grow at an exponential rate, and exponential charts are barely more than linear for the first half of their existence until they hit the knee of the curve, and then they go astronomical. So yes, Bitcoin is going viral in Argentina and Venezuela and Russia and Turkey and India and China. It's just that those numbers are still so incredibly small. It's only the nerds. We still have some security and user experience major hurdles to come over, but Nevertheless, yes, it is absolutely viral. It's been viral for 7 years. It's just that even after 7 years, it's still quote unquote only single digit or double digit millions. Now, you would have shocked and exploded brains of the very few nerds that knew anything at all about Bitcoin in 2010 by saying that we would have 20 million or 15 million or 8 million users in 7 years. They would be shocked too by the price of $50, $1080 in India at this time. So I don't think that the premium is any surprise. We're going to see continued premia around the world in these type of markets where there's extremely high demand and very little liquidity, which is the case with a sound asset like Bitcoin. There's huge premia for gold and silver all over Europe, all over Asia. It's a very similar effect with, and this is not for paper. There's even a little bit of a premium for paper gold and silver in China, for example. But for spot prices for metal in a store, you're looking at 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50%, because you have to cart it on a donkey to your village. You have to get it on a ship to where you're going. And Bitcoin, even though it can be moved easily, the fiat moves slow. So liquidity is low, demand is high. We're going to see continued viral adoption. Just wait for that knee of that curve. In my opinion and my prediction, it's going to happen this year next.
Well, even if it's only the Chinese and Indian Bitcoin nerds, I say, welcome aboard. Kyle Torpy.
Yeah, so with the adoption of Bitcoin as money this year, with Gabe was just talking about, it's possible. I think Venezuela is probably the best case or possible place where that would happen right now. But the problem with a place like Venezuela is that the government can just shut down the internet too. So, and they've done that in the past. So it's going to be a difficult situation where a lot of the places where Bitcoin might take off, the government also has a lot of control over the infrastructure that Bitcoin runs on. In terms of adoption in India, I think we already talked about Bitcoin's killer app in India, which is GBMiners. That if you want to run a Ponzi scheme, Bitcoin is a great tool to do that. Outside of like normal use cases like gambling, ransomware, and stuff like that, I did talk to Sunny Ray from Unocoin a month or two ago, and he was talking about different users. And the one that he pointed out that kind of made sense was freelancers in India, when they get paid from abroad, like to use Bitcoin because they'll get much more than they would otherwise get if they're using something like PayPal. First of all, the fees are lower, and because of the premium, they're basically getting a bonus when they receive Bitcoin and then sell it on Unocoin right away. So it's like, not only are the fees cheaper, but they're actually getting paid more because they're accepting payments in Bitcoin. And I asked him about the premium, but this is probably, I think it was a month, maybe two. I think it was like a month ago. He said the premium had gone away. So I haven't read the article that you posted, but as far as I know, the premium is mostly gone at this point, because even Unocoin, I think, was looking in to trying to do some type of arbitrage, but the problem was the capital controls in the country made it difficult for them to get money on U.S. exchanges or exchanges outside the country.
Hey,
I think for the Venezuela issue, Venezuela would be coming from a position of extreme weakness into Bitcoin. And while the Indian economy is faltering, they are a little more strong. So it would be interesting to see them try to adopt Bitcoin rather than Venezuela with the extreme weakness. Sorry, Tone, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to jump right back in here. So for those watching it live, I strongly recommend reading this article from Harvard Business Review, and it's called "The Countries That Would Profit Most from a Cashless World." I found this article very, very fascinating, and some of the links that this article references from other academic studies on the removal of cash. I mean, I really enjoyed it. And some of these graphics actually took me some time. I'm like, wait, what does this mean? This cost of getting cash around the world index. And this was really, really interesting. I'm actually going to be presenting at the hackathon in about an hour, my presentation, and I'm going to talk about this. Hopefully I'll have time for it in my presentation. And they identified very, very well the reasons for the elimination of cash, which has to do with the ability to make negative interest rates and removal of bank runs, because if there's no cash, there's no bank run, and collecting all the possible tax revenues. So it was a very, very, I thought it was like a great article. Now, what this shows, this picture here, in it, is they have a color coding. This is the cost of cash in a country, right? So if it's blue, that means it's very, very cheap. Like the government doesn't spend much money moving cash around the country. So like stocking ATM machines or processing of cash payments for businesses, like to the government, like the cost to the government of having a cash system in that country is very, very low. Like now US is moderate because US is pretty cash-based society, and also US dollars move around the world. So I'm sure a big contribution of the US, making sure that their cash is legit. Also payments, let's say government has to put in all these efforts to make sure their cash isn't counterfeit. So they have to, come out with new and advanced bills, things like that. And then you look at Europe and it's red. But you're like, well, Germany is a pretty advanced country. Italy is a pretty advanced country. Why is it such a high cost for that government to have cash there? And this article explains these things. And India and China are also red. And then they have this index here. And this is also, again, you have to like really, I was looking at this for a while. I'm like, what the hell does this mean? And why is India such an outlier? And what this is, like the higher you are, like over here, so the higher you are, that means the more technologically you are ready, cashless society. So the lower you are, that means the crappier your digital technology is. And the more you are to the right side, means the more you get out of removing all the cash. So like Germany, Belgium, and France, their government will save a lot of money by removing cash, and they're digitally capable of removing the cash because people are pretty advanced. Now, India is here, which means that India had the most to gain out of all these countries by the removal of cash, which makes sense because 80% of that country runs on cash, and that it's way more tax revenue that the government isn't getting because of a cash society. And this article points to it directly, and they have the numbers, which is, again, this is an amazing article from Harvard Business Review on the elimination of cash. But India is so low on a technological level, and they specifically talk about India and how India is not ready for the elimination of cash because of a large population. And anyway, so just here's the headline. I'm sure you can Google it. I strongly recommend this article for people. So it's very, very like fascinating to the world that India is trying to literally jump from here all the way to here. And I have no idea how this experiment is going to work. But I just wanted to point to this. Also, one quick comment on Sunny Ray. He runs an amazing meetup in Toronto. I am going. It will be February. I will be speaking at Sunny, one of the meetup that Sunny Ray helps organize in Toronto on February 6th. So you're in Toronto, definitely come down and support.
Excellent. And let's move on to issue 4. Issue 4, Backpage backs out. Due to intense pressure from the U.S. government, the website, which hosts advertisements for goods and services, has shut down their adult sections. The outcome is similar to Craigslist, which shut down similar sections in 2010. Backpage, famously blocked by Visa, had turned to Bitcoin to allow users to purchase adult ads. Is this the end of online adult advertising forever and Bitcoin? Blake Anderson.
Well, it's tough. I mean, is it going to be the end of it forever? Obviously not. But at the same time, I mean, people that are the law or the government or whatever, they have an obligation to preserve the negative rights of people especially people that, you know, are minors or that for whatever reason are, you know, mentally retarded, or people that are more vulnerable in society. So they want to say, you know, people are being, you know, sold, or basically sexual acts for minors and stuff are going on over this network. I can see why they would definitely be wanting to stop that. But I think what happens is so many people that work for the government and in government positions want to make their cause or something really, really known, and they want to not just protect the children. They want to virtue signal in terms of, we're going to constantly be assaulting this medium no matter what they're doing, to try to get the entire thing shut down. And it sounds like that's what Backpage felt was happening. It wasn't just when there was malfeasance possibly going on that they were being hassled, but they were being just continually investigated and hounded and harangued by the government until they were just no longer willing to run the thing. So, I mean, I can understand the motivation to want to protect the negative rights of minors, but at the same time, it seems like the government really, I mean, this is a microcosm of how the government tends to become overzealous and maybe harass people more than they become a level-headed arbiter of justice. So yeah, it kind of goes both ways. I can see why the government was wanting to trying to protect people, but then people just perseverate over, you know, oh, we know that this one medium has the risk for that. We'll just go and constantly use all of our time to harass them, and then it'll look like we're really getting stuff done, when really we're just going after one actor that maybe had the potential to do something bad. Maybe their debt to society was non-existent or paid, but we continually went to go harass them until they were unable to even survive. So it's, but maybe not handled the best way at the end of the day, to say the least.
It kind of seems like a golden shower of morality that just trickles down from the top. Theo Goodman.
Over. It's done. No, it's okay. On to the next. On to the next. No big deal. People are going to do what they want to do. On to the next. No big deal. People will figure out a way. No big deal. There'll be a new platform. It'll find whatever other loophole that exists. You know, the authorities will then, you know, close that loophole, and there'll be another loophole. It's just the same thing, same cat and mouse game that's going on. And of course, Bitcoin is a great tool for it. And now people learned, probably a lot of people learned how to use it and are really used to using it. And it'll be even easier to make some other new platform or find some other way to do it, and they'll just probably keep using Bitcoin and you know, just go on, because they learn their lesson about using Visa and other methods. So it makes it even easier for people just to adapt, in my opinion.
If anything, the major loss would be the whole cottage industry of people teaching escorts how to use Bitcoin so they could post ads. Gabriel D. Vine.
I have one word with 2 hyphens in it. Whack-a-mole.
There are so many. Kyle Torpy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think what Backpage is doing is going to go away just because they're not doing it anymore. It just creates an incentive for someone else to start that business, maybe in another country, maybe over Tor. It's going to be built either way. But the one thing, I mean, this is a basic use case for Bitcoin. Like when the government tells you can't do something, you use Bitcoin to get around what they're telling you to do. So it's besides like ransomware and stuff like that. It's like, I like these kind of use cases where people are actually like, they're not just using Bitcoin because they feel like it or because they like it. They're using it because they have to. Those are always the most interesting use cases to me. And it makes me think about like the Jorge Stolfis of the world. I wouldn't wish ransomware on anyone, but I wonder what his response would be if his computer got ransomware and the only way to get his files back was to buy some Bitcoin and send the payment. I wonder if it'd just be really funny to me if Jorge was forced to use Bitcoin, even though again, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
It's a time to pay. And as we all know, these centralized points are really centralized points of failure. Tone Vase.
Hey guys, so I decided to literally do research on this topic right now as you guys were talking, so thank you for getting to me last.
Oh yeah, research. That's what they're calling it now.
I perhaps it should not be appropriate for me to share the screen right now, but I don't know. Well, I guess it's up to you, Thomas. But I've already found where everything has moved. So the sections are canceled. But if you go to, and this is the whack-a-mole. This is the whack-a-mole that Gabriel had a perfect answer. I also understand why he had a very short answer. He's enjoying his Snuggie. Are you in California or in Moscow, where it just hit -40? It was I had an interesting discussion earlier today. Somebody was telling me about the temperature in Moscow, -40, and they were talking to me in Celsius, and the person is like, hey, so are you able to like convert Celsius to Fahrenheit because you're American? And I'm like, it's really easy at -40. At -40, it's actually the same whether you're in Fahrenheit or in Celsius, which tells you how cold Russia actually got. But anyway, so that section, for those that are interested, has now moved to women seeking men. So those that have been resourceful with their ads, those that know how to use Bitcoin, have moved all of their ads to the women seeking men section on Backpage. So go ahead and you can still get whatever you need. And if that gets shut down, and I understand why it sort of got shut down, this is why you don't run a company like this publicly, and the CEO of your company should not be flying through America where he got arrested, and the investors of Backpage got arrested. It's kind of bad. So they do need to, hell, they can raise prices, right? You have to take it anonymously, you have to disappear, and you can still run it. You have the reputation for running this. And if you can't run it, somebody else will. And I hope it doesn't become, free for all, like what after Napster went down. I hope someone reputable will do it. We were just talking to one of the guys from Exoticus here. We're like, hey, you guys should, try to build a competitor to this. And I tweeted at Paxful, who are running a business in educating these escorts in learning how to use Bitcoin, which is an industry, and they're fairly profitable, I believe. And they're basically in the education business of selling the Bitcoin to these escorts. And maybe they have a reputation to build something as a competitor, and you do it out of the country and you stay out of like US and maybe even Europe. And you can run one of these things because the cat is out of the bag. And if the industry is demanding it, if there is demand, someone is going to provide the supply. I believe that prostitution should be legal, and that would help them problem of underage prostitution and forced prostitution. Because if you legalize prostitution, you can have the pimps or the nerds these days that are running these operations help you, because illegal prostitution cuts into their legal business. So you can use them as allies to cut down on the child prostitution and on forced prostitution, because you have legal prostitution businesses that will help you against those illicit versions of prostitution. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to acknowledge this for consenting adults, so they have no friends in that industry, and it makes it impossible for them to fight the really bad parts of that industry versus the okay parts of that industry. Not everything is is black and white. Everything is a sliding scale. And if you don't have allies in that industry, there's no way you can fight it, and you're just wasting taxpayers' money. Hardworking people that are wasting money on these, on all this regulation.
So you're saying that like John Podesta definitely doesn't want legalized prostitution because that would get in the way of his pizza parties, right?
I don't know much detail on that, so I can't comment.
All right, fair enough.
I'm surprised the category switch was so basic. I expected something more exotic, like you had to search for instant pudding.
Sorry, Thomas. It's all about perception. It's not about the reality, right? Like enough SJWs complain about why is it called escort. So now it's just a little more obscure. It's obscure enough not to be in the face of all these SJWs. It's obscure to a point where, now it's consenting adults. Fine. Now we're just not going to call it blatant prostitution. So now it's consenting adults. So maybe that section is okay. It's like it's the same exact act. It's how you call it, right?
And remember, if you film it, it's pornography, not prostitution. George Orwell would be proud. But let's move on to prediction or story of the week. Blake Anderson, are you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Prediction or story of the week. I guess my story of the week is just I've been away from the Bitcoin group for a long time. I missed it very, very much. I had a lot of family issues going on as far as my son, who has special needs, starting a new therapy regimen and things like that. He's been doing really, really well. And my wife has been very supportive. So now I look forward to being able to be back on the show a lot more often now. You can see my house is kind of torn up right now and under construction, but yeah, we'll get that stuff done, and I'll be much more regular on the show on Fridays. And I really just can't articulate how great it is to be back. I love you guys a lot, and obviously there is not a whole bunch of people that any of us can talk to outside of this group on this kind of a level about these kinds of issues. And I'm just so thankful to be here and to have you guys as my friends that that I can't believe how fortunate I am. So really, really, really excited to be back. Really excited to be interacting with the chat, which is also so hilarious that it continually derails my thought processes. And this is my happy spot. So I guess that's kind of my, touchy-feely story of the week there.
Good stuff. Theo Goodman, story of the week.
I don't have a story of the week. I have predictions because we're moving into the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, and we're going to hit it off. First of all, I'm going to go with Kansas City -1.5. If you can get it, -1, take that. I'm going to go with Atlanta versus Seahawks over 51 points. It's going over the total. Also, I'm going to take Atlanta -5. Going to go with the Patriots against the Texans. The Texans have the 4th largest point spread of history in the playoffs with a whopping +15 points, but I'm going to go with Patriots first half -10. And I'm also going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to go with Green Bay +4.5 over the Dallas Cowboys. Those are my predictions of the week.
15 is a lot of points. Whoa. 2 touchdowns and an extra point.
It opened at 16. I don't know if it went higher than 16, but I saw it open at 16. So I wonder if that was like the 3rd highest or 2nd highest. I don't know if you know. I'm curious.
16 is the 4th highest that any of the people that keep track have in their database. So ever since the playoffs existed, 16 is the 4th highest ever point spread in the playoffs.
Yeah, I saw it open at 16.
Joe Montana.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
Let's go to Gabriel D. Vine. Do you have a prediction or a story of the week?
Yes, something that I decided to skip on the China exchange regulation topic that I'd like to revisit for my story of the week. You guys know that I talk a lot about Cliff High's fascinating Alta reports, which he sends out a bunch of spiders and bots on the web bots that collect information, and he sees what kind of trends. He's been doing it for about 20 years, and absolutely fascinating. Not always accurate, although the Bitcoin predictions tend to be very accurate, even with prices and some timing. And the one very, very interesting part of this last WebBot report from around December 30th was a section describing something coming up in the data called a Eurasian Bitcoin nation growing with unprecedented speed, something that he's thinking about actually devoting a whole new section of the report on as a new entity, as he calls it, data entity. And what this thing is described as is the Chinese government laying fiber at an unprecedented speed through Asia, not just China, all the way through west through through Russia and stuff, bringing almost 1 billion new users onto the internet in 2017 and early 18, and setting them all up with Bitcoin wallets. The Eurasian Bitcoin nation. Watch for it.
Never heard of it, but it sounds great. Kyle Torpy, you ready with a prediction or a story of the week?
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about India before, I guess since Amit is not going to be very happy with ZebPay since they made that video about how all those cloud mining schemes are scams. And so one of the things he said is ZebPay wouldn't be much of anything if it wasn't for getting Bitcoin, because all the people that go through that Ponzi scheme use ZebPay. So I don't know how large the scheme is, but I imagine a lot of the volumes at the exchanges is actually for the gain Bitcoin Ponzi scheme. But as far as a story, I did have an interview with Barry Silbert posted this week about what Digital Currency Group thinks about Ethereum and Ethereum Classic and Rootstock. So you should definitely check that out on Bitcoin Magazine. They invested in Etherscan, which is basically just an Ethereum block explorer. But Barry pretty much doesn't think any of the decentralized applications being built right now are useful at all. And they've looked at pretty much every Ethereum project available and decided to pass on all of them, except for this block explorer, which I guess it could be pivoted away from Ethereum to Rootstock or something pretty easily.
And block explorers are historically incredibly profitable, magnificent enterprises to invest in. So, but we'll have to see how it goes. That's excellent. So you can check that interview out at Bitcoin Magazine. Good stuff. Tone Vay's prediction or story of the week.
All right, you know what? I'm going to go with prediction, and I don't normally do this, but what the hell, right? Since we've been talking Bitcoin price all day, so I'm going to go with the Bitcoin price. And I'm not going to talk about the history. You can go to my blog, or you can go to earlier this blog. I actually called the bounce right here off of this line at 760, and I called it pretty in advance, and that was kind of cool, even though I didn't personally profit from it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, I'm going to make it yellow, and I'm going to draw this line right here, which I find very, very important. And it should be like a solid line, a little thicker, and let me do that, right? So this is a line, and as you can see right here, I'm also going to grab, nope, not that one, sorry. I'm going to grab this one. This starts to become too time consuming. It's not going to end very well. Give me 1 second here. Come on. And where are my arcs? Here we go. Sorry about that, guys. This is going to be my prediction, and this needs to be, as you can see, I'm a little OCD when it comes to my graphs. So what you have right here,
Reminds me of back in the day playing with kid picks.
I know, right? So you have this shape, and this is known as a, and then I need to draw one more. So that's your cup.
Cup and handle.
And right here, yes. This is known as a cup and handle pattern. This, and then this. Arcs, 2 semicircles. Why isn't this adjusting? Anyway, I might have screwed that one up, but right. So you kind of get the idea. So because of this, I am looking for a breakout. Let me get an arrow here, and this arrow should be green. And I am looking for a breakout here, and to take us all the way back up to 900. This is an hourly chart, by the way. And then once we go here, all we have to do is break this line, and then we go even higher. So I do think that the bottom is in. I think that the worst is over. Of course, I am not factoring in the PBOC does decide to come in and, you know, shut down these Chinese exchanges, and then all hell will break loose. I don't think that's going to happen for now. And I am liking this cup and handle, and I am looking for a breakout. It'll take us back to 900, and then above, I do see us going back to all-time highs and higher than all-time highs in the near future. So that's what I'm seeing in the market. That's pretty much, that will be my prediction for the week, that we are going to break off of that line.
Yeah, I personally made a large purchase in the mid-700s.
Some great news, 40. Well,
I was going to say, just
but-
me personally, without any kind of graphs, I made a large purchase at the mid 700s. So that's where I thought that the bounce was, and so I'm pretty much in agreement with Tone's analysis.
It's looking good then. We've had about 140 viewers. Thanks to everyone for watching it live. Thanks for chatting. Make sure to give us a thumbs up, share this video on Twitter, things like that. And we're going to move on to my story of the week, which is pretty simple. We've been talking about it on Twitter for a little while. We're going to have a little contest soon called Bitcoin Idol. So if you have a favorite Bitcoin song that you'd like to nominate, just go ahead and go to Twitter, Mad Bitcoins, and you can nominate the song. We're looking for open nominations, so you still have time if you want to record your own song about Bitcoin or maybe make a new music video for your old song. It should be an exciting show. We're probably going to keep the nominations open for another week, and then we'll start having the show. And it's just a nice way to celebrate all the great artists that we have making music in Bitcoin. Some of them are parodies, some of them are original songs, some have great videos, some are just SoundCloud, but we want to recognize them all and just get the word out there about all the great people making things to support Bitcoin. And we'll be joined by Gabriel Devine on that, and maybe Derek J. Freeman, but we're about out of time. So until next time, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.